This is kind of a lighter story. Wasn't a whole lot of darker stuff going on. This was actually a pretty decent time. I think it was around, hold on, background noise. I'm gonna try to do this minus the background noise. But see, there was this, when we were hustling, one of my guys, we used to go and get the double stack. The double stack was like $2. So like if you needed, we go make a little money and we just hit Wendy's right off East Lake. Now, this is the Wendy's. I never liked the one. Let me see where is it at? All right, so here it is. I never liked the Wendy's. Now, this is the old Wendy's, y'all. This is from 2017. The Wendy's does not look like this. I like the old Wendy's, keep it real. But this is the old Wendy's. This is from 2019. See how they changed it up? But this Aldi's wasn't there when we were hustling. Now this number 7 would stop here, the 21 would curve around here. I'm gonna try to put some music behind this. On something making noise. Now, right here, that was the auto zone. I used to go there sometimes, especially when I had a car. But now, I had a homie who used to work the drive-through. We met this dude. We start selling him CDs and stuff like that, right? I don't know where this dude is right now. His name was Pancho. I never knew his government name. He was Pancho the G from Georgia, by way of Gary, Indiana. Pancho was a cool, laid-back Southern dude from Georgia, and I think he had family from Gary, Indiana. And he stayed out there at one point in time, and he used to always call it Scary Gary. He had a tattoo that said Scary Gary on it. Real cool. We start hanging out because we start selling him CDs and stuff, and so we start kind of hanging out. He was hustling too. He had a bunch of kids and stuff. He'd always have females come up there trying to fight him because it might have been some baby mom or something. And I think there was a manager there, and he was knocking down the manager, and he ended up getting her pregnant or something like that. So he was always into something, but he was cool. So we started kind of hanging around. We had exchanged numbers. This is around when the two ways. So the two-way pagers. When did the two-way pagers come out? When did the two-way pagers come out, y'all? Because then I'll know what year the two-way pagers came out. They said 95. Yeah, it wasn't 90. It wasn't 95. Let me type in Fabulous. Because he said something about a two-way pager. He said something about a two-way. So I want to know when Fabulous came out. Then I'm going to know kind of around that time. Because it was definitely before IPR. Because he probably would have tried to get in the studio if it was IPR. So, okay, Ghetto Fabulous came out in 2001. September 11, 2001 of that. So this had to be in 02, maybe 03. I don't think it was 03. It could have been a part of 03, but I'm quite sure it was maybe late 01 or 02. So now I'm kind of getting my bearings together. Because remember, the girl from Texas that used to draw, she had came by the house and had met my mom one time. Thick, bad, little chocolate thing. And my mom had really liked her. So that must have been around 2000, 2001, 2002, probably around about that. And remember my little hustling dealings downtown with my homie, because I had met her there, and we had just clicked. I should have never let her go around in that time, whatever. But she ended up going out of town, and then she came back. A lot of people leave and can't survive wherever they go, and they come back to Minnesota because it's easier. So now, Pancho, he buying all these CDs and stuff, and we start hanging out, and I know I was still living with my mom because it was okay. Let me go back a little bit. So now we hanging out. We come by. He don't come in the house, but I had some pretzels. So we sitting out there drinking beer and eating pretzels. I don't know where we got the beer, but we just eating pretzels late at night. Eventually, because I wasn't just gonna be bringing people into the house. He stayed outside. My mom already knew my other homie, but she didn't know him. And and he understood, like, you just bringing people in the house late at night. I didn't really like doing that, especially if you didn't know. If you're gonna bring somebody by, and you got to think she's used to a certain amount of friends that I got and whatnot. So now, and it was respectful, so I went and got them some juice or whatever. He was just sitting out on the porch. He wasn't tripping. So, like, one night, I think before that, there was a place that was right here too. There was a fish place. I think some Asians ran it, but there was a fish place right here at Aldi's. If you go down here a little bit, let me see. Actually, him being in the background is kind of cool with the little laughing and stuff. But this was the Aldi's, and at one point there was a Wells Fargo. The clinic's still there. The Denny's, I don't think the Denny's is there no more. But that used to be, man, I'm telling you, the Denny's used to be a thing. Remember, it's funny because now they think, oh, well, cheesecake is too cheap. Man, please. Man, please. Half these dudes that knock something down over Denny's back in the day. I'm telling you. Half the brothers in Minneapolis, man, when they was taking the chick out, a lot of y'all went to that damn Denny's on East Lake Street. You wasn't too good for Denny's. Cheesecake Factory was high up around that time. But then once they start seeing social media and dudes riding around on Rolls Royces and all that kind of stuff, they figured, well, because see what happened is with social media is we started getting access to stuff we wasn't supposed to have. You don't make $500,000 to $2 to $3 million. Talking about you want a nigga with a $300,000 car. You don't have access to that. Your family's never seen that kind of money. These Ferraris and these very expensive things, as Lil Boosie would say, they're for the rich. They're not for the average nigga. So you started seeing when women look at these social media, but like, well, I should just have a $500,000 nigga. No. Do you look the part of a $500,000? Does a $500,000? Are you the $500,000 nigga's best option? Most of the time, you're not. He has a lot of options. So it just gave people to where, oh, they click, man, I want somebody with a Rolls Royce. Well, your grandma never had nobody with a Rolls Royce. Your mama and your grandma had a nigga with a Cadillac at best. But now they sitting up there thinking, so that's what I'm saying. Back then, Denny's was, and even some sedity chicks be like, oh, no, Denny's. And then you could be like, oh, Cheesecake Factory. Okay. Benny Hondas was a big thing at one point. If you in your 20s and you riding and you got something kind of clean, not even necessarily clean. My first shit was a bucket. You could pick. They not tripping as long as you paying the bill. They not tripping. So, like I say, he was making money, and he was making money. He was hustling, and he was at Wendy's and stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? Bro was at Wendy. He was at Wendy. Now, remember when I was telling y'all about the dude that got killed, that they say got killed, TY or whatever, that he went to South with us. He was into some other stuff. He was into some, he ran some shiesty characters. Matter of fact, they caught me in the 20s one time, and they were like, what you doing over here? Because they weren't accustomed to seeing me. You got to think, I was like, in class, I'm like the school kid. So they didn't really think that I would come around. You see what I'm saying? They probably figured that, because I guess the kids in my area and the group of kids that was in my area, they're not going to be coming on Franklin in the 20s and stuff. They're going to be kind of scared. Now, I wasn't, but they probably just figured, well, he ain't no, he's a little different than us. So he was like, what you doing over here? They were kind of surprised. But I would pull up. I would go, like I say, it wouldn't probably be a good idea, but I would go into some of these areas and it'd be dope boys and dudes, and they might be posted up and they kind of deep. I would go alone a lot of times by myself. And they're kind of wondering, like, he ain't scared to be over here or whatever, and I wasn't. I'm going to get that bread. You see what I'm saying? So, but he warned me about that dude because he said that he had did something to somebody. He said, yeah, he did something to a dude just like you, DP. And what he means by me is like, I wasn't a cutthroat kind of guy. You see what I'm saying? And most of the people that they was hanging around, they were very cutthroat. Pancho wasn't cutthroat, but he could be. And he was dangerous because he didn't play no games. And I could tell that he immediately had a lot of respect amongst the other GDs once he got in town. He was quiet. He used to always wear his little 6-point star and stuff. A lot of times we used to go into the neighborhood. My homies telling him, man, just put that away because it's GDs around here, but the red rags might take offense. Like, okay, man, you in our neighborhood and you just blatantly just wearing it, like, you know what I'm saying? So now we hanging out and stuff like that, and we just it's like we knew this dude forever. At one point he moved back. It's okay. It's okay. It's like he moved back off of Minnehaha. Want to be on camera? Man, okay, so he moved back on Minnehaha. So that's my son. He's just checking it out. So now he moved back. I gotta go get him. It was somewhere around here, or matter of fact, somewhere around this block, I think. Let me see if I can find it. This was a long time ago, but there were some decent little apartments. Let me see. It was somewhere around here. Somewhere. So it got to a point. Something happened and he shaved his head completely. So I said, okay, yeah, some must have went down. But he ended up moving to St. Paul at one point. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he stopped working over there at Wendy's or whatever. He eventually got him a car. And I don't know what happened, but we never seen him again. We never seen that dude again. I don't know if we would have continued hanging out as long. Eventually we would have kept, but he used to tell us stories about like when he used to do time in Georgia. And between Georgia and Gary or whatever like that. I think he said some of his families, a lot of them were like Puerto Ricans. And he said there was Puerto Ricans in Gary, which I didn't know, but I guess, and I said, so now, man, this dude was crazy. He was like Kevin Gates before Kevin Gates. He was like, yeah, I'll bring you Gary, man. I'll bring you to Gary one day, man. And he said, yeah, my cousin's Puerto Rican. They'll probably talk to you. I'm like, I'm not gonna talk to your cousins. He said they might like you, and I'm just. So now, and he tells me another story that's real fun. I got a couple stories with Pancho. It was hilarious. He tells me a story where he's, in the South, sometimes their cousins be close, or third, fourth cousins, whatever. He's at the family reunion. He's telling me about a family reunion he went to that he got mad because he brought some girl to the family reunion. It was his cousin, but he didn't know it. This was his cousin. And he's holding hands. And I guess one of the elders was like, oh, you met your cousin? You walking around? Because, they probably thinking like you was walking around holding your cousin's hand or something like that, Oh, you met your cousin? And he said, my cousin? He said he was so mad. He been knocking his cousin down on a regular basis. And I asked him, I said, you gonna keep on? I said, did you keep on doing it? He said, hell no. He said, what you think? You know, so it was fun. He was so mad. He was so mad when we asked him that question. We were like, man, did you keep on? Did you just figure like, well, you already just to mess with him? You know what I'm saying? Oh, the look on his, he was so upset. He was so mad when we said that to him. So we just messing with him and stuff like that. So like one day we was just all three, we was just all just chilling. We was smoking. And out of the blue, we get quiet. We ain't saying nothing. Out of the blue, one of my other guys is just, he just looks at my homie. He looks at Pancho. And he gets kind of staring at him for a minute. And I don't know if it was the weed or whatever, but he said, man, you a funny looking motherfucker. And he kind of was like because he looked like he could have been mixed or he Puerto Rican or something, but he had a distinctive look and he looked funny. And the women used to like him. They used to love him. But he had these hazel eyes and he was funny looking. He looked like a character off a cartoon. But on top of the fact and we used to roast. We roasted each other. He wasn't a big roaster or whatever, but we roast. Sometimes we'll roast each other and stuff like that. That's why a lot of times, when we used to because remember, Minnesota is very immigrant friendly and stuff like that. And we have people coming from different places. So when folks come from different places, from different countries, and they start getting around black folk, we gonna get on them. Because we roast each other all the time, and they don't know how to roast, and they be kind of salty, but we tearing them up, tearing each other up, and it's all in good fun. It's because, you gonna get roasted. If you had some shoes in school and they look bogus, they gonna get on you. They're getting on you immediately, especially dudes from Chicago. Oh, Chicago folks are brutal. Chicago folks are brutal. Chicago folks are the most brutal roasters ever. Your shoes, your hairline, your smile, they'll get on everything. You can't get around those Chicago people and think you just gonna win a roast. It ain't happening. You'll get embarrassed. You'll get embarrassed. Chicago will blow you out the water. Let me go check this up. Yeah, Chicago, they brutal. The women are too. If you think you're gonna get on a woman from Chicago, she gonna get on you bad. Especially if your shoes ain't on point, she gonna get on you bad. All the good fun, but they gonna get on you. And like I said, if most sisters from Chicago that we saw in Minnesota, if they're interested, there is no hiding. They don't do that like with some women from Minnesota used to, you don't know where they're coming from and all this, and you're not sure or whatever. Ain't none of that. They let it be known. I'm interested. I'm highly interested. And they will say and they will do things that's not gonna lead a man to think that, well, she's not interested or she's not she's gonna cook, she gonna make it, she gonna let it be known. And in my experience, they want to close that deal quick. Yeah, they're not waiting along and it's 4 or 5 months down the line or whatever. No, they getting on it quick. They trying to close that deal fast. They closing that deal quick. So I could always tell when we were out and about if it was a woman from Chicago 9 times out of 10, because if they buying stuff from you, they want a deal. Oh, they go talk you into a deal. Number 2. If they spend it with you and they like you, they gonna let that be known too. You know what I'm saying? And they're gonna know what they want. So if you put some bullshit up, like if you say, well, yeah, I got this on the CD, they'll look at the CD, oh hell, I don't want that. That's whack. They're brutal judges too. You go to a city like that, as far as music, you are gonna be judged brutally. That's a hard crowd. I've heard New York and Chicago is one of the hardest crowds. Oh, you got to come with it. You really got to bring your A game when you doing music or anything where they paying for it, because I'm telling you, it's a lot of talent there. Nah, man, you ain't just gonna go up in there willy-nilly. But anyway, now Gary was a little different. Gary has a little less money. In my experience, I think the women were a little humbler. Actually, might be a little crazier, because I'm like some of them, because I don't know if this is a small town, but it's real down to earth. Chicago's naturally more fashionable, even though it's only 40 minutes away. But in my experience, I'm saying, like, the women I used to talk to from Gary, it's a slower speed. The pace is a little slower. So, but no, so he was like, yeah, we'll go down to Gary one day or whatever like that. I had never been down to Gary, so I don't know why I would have went down there, whatever, gets to hang out or whatnot, but I didn't have nobody down there, you know, but I probably would have went down there with him or whatnot. But I mean, you know, he had family down there. He was telling us about some time when he was telling us about a time where he had did some time, and there was a dude, you know, because he was, you know what I'm saying, he was affiliated and stuff, so he didn't really have too many issues, but you know, you're gonna have your fights. And he was, I don't know if it was in a Georgia prison or if it was in Indiana prison, but it was somewhere where he did time, and you could tell he did time. You could tell, but you know, he had a good heart. And he was telling us about a time that a young dude got violated in there. You know what I'm saying? Because he couldn't defend himself, or he didn't defend himself or whatever like that. And he said he had felt bad for the dude or whatever. You know, and I remember he told us that. So that was kind of a scary story. He'd have all these scary stories. These, you know, there's all kind of stuff or whatever. But, you know, he didn't give off the vibe. He didn't give off the vibe of a bad dude, and he didn't give off the vibe of a shiesty dude or whatever like that. But he was a street dude. You see what I'm saying? And he didn't give off the vibe, but you could definitely tell that he made his mark when he landed in this town. I could kind of tell that he had to set some dudes straight. He probably done did some shit to some niggas too. I could just tell. You see what I'm saying? The way he kind of carried himself, and when we used to kind of go around, you know, it seemed like people kind of knew him. He didn't try to put himself out there, but you know, like I said, he wear his little 6-point everywhere he goes. And you know, sometimes we'd be on the bus, and some dudes they'd see it, and you know, we had to be at the bus stop, and we might be going somewhere, going to get something to eat, and dudes would just throw the rakes and he throw them back. But he wasn't all overly. He was very calm. And I think that's one of the things that made him kind of dangerous too, because he was a very, very calm dude, and he wasn't trying to press. He wasn't aggressive or whatever. But I could tell he was, you know, like if things got left, because I think there was something like where somebody had owed me some money, and they didn't pay me or something like that. And he just took it. He took it. Just like the dude that had called me and just went out of proportion. He said, "Oh, hey, owe you money, little homie?" Like, yeah, you know, they need to pay up or whatever, and they still ain't paid or whatever. Because I think I must have got off the phone or something, just randomly. And he heard that they didn't pay me. He said, "Man, they owe you some money?" He said it just like that. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "They probably gonna pay." He said, "You sure they gonna pay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh," he said, "All right, you know, I'll make him pay." he said, "I'll make him pay." Like, and he was dead set. I thought he was joking or something. He said, I'll make him pay, bro. They'll never do that again. And I was kind of like, okay, no, I'm not gonna tell him nothing, because he was that type. If I would have told him, "Hey man, they owe me some money, go ahead and, you know, do," he would have did it. He would have did it with no hesitation, and wouldn't have felt bad about it. And that's why I said, I'm like, no, you know what I'm saying? Don't do anything to him. Don't, you know, because he was on some, all right, y'all, I'm gonna go to the next story. He's trying to grab me. This was another piece that I wanted to kind of add about our homie Pancho. And I forgot this piece, but I want to throw it in before I do this final edit. And he always felt like he was a lost soul, and he had some issue with somebody. Somebody did something to a family member, or I don't know what it was, but it was something. It was like a cousin that he had an issue with back down in Gary or whatever it was. It was some issue that happened, because I never really found out as to how he ended up in Gary and all of that. We didn't really ask. We didn't eventually get to that, because I wanted to kind of know that story or whatever. Like, how'd you end up in Gary, Indiana versus, from coming from Georgia? And I think maybe it could have been a situation where he skipped town or something from Georgia, was doing some time and left and went down to Gary because he knew nobody would find him down there or something like that. And then he somehow ended up here. I don't even know how he ended up here, but people probably heard about Minneapolis, like, well, you come up here and you just be ducked off. So that's what it could have been. It was kind of a mysterious, he kind of had like a mysterious background, not really in a bad way, but like I remember he had another tat that said something like lost soul. And he was telling us like, man, I feel like I'm lost. Like he'd be like, man, I'm lost. I know I'm going to hell. And he said, I want to see that bastard, but I want him to see my face when I'm burning, or something. Like it was somebody he had a problem with and he wanted to get back or something like that. And it was just, you could tell. And like, even when he was talking about like the scary Gary, he had a scary Gary tattoo. And I said, like he was telling us about why he had got it or whatever. He said, yeah, man, it's scary, man. It's scary down there, man. And he never would raise his voice over a certain octave or whatever like that. And when he kind of laughed, it wasn't like a double over laugh. It was kind of like a, like a smile, more of a, but like I said, if you would have met him, you wouldn't have really known, you know what I'm saying? He just didn't give off that vibe of he just doesn't give off that vibe that and I think he was from somewhere in Atlanta or by Atlanta or somewhere in Georgia. It might have been Atlanta, but I don't know if it was in Atlanta, but it was probably outside of Georgia or whatever. But it wasn't a vibe of, I'm gonna do something to you or whatever like that. Now, if you rubbed him the wrong way, and see, that's what made it so that's what made it so like it made him such a mysterious person, because he's not going to yell. He's not really going to go above and beyond when it comes to like it's flat out aggression and stuff like that. But he go there, and we think he was kind of psychotic. Like he could go there, and the thing is he could go there and you would never really know, because he doesn't really, he's not showing anger like that. You see what I'm saying? I remember one particular story too that was really, really funny, is when he used to get mad, he just don't say too much, but you can't really, the look on his face, you can't really tell. But I remember there were some people covered up the window. It was hilarious. It was so hilarious. So we hang out. We're at that bus stop right by the drive-thru. So we just sitting there, and folks getting off the bus, and we just selling our CDs and stuff. We just sit in that little bus stop. We might sit there for like 5-6 hours or something like that, just making money. And he's through the drive-thru, so he's talking to us here and there. He has his little two-way, and it always be some chick coming up there trying to fight and mad at him or whatever, because he probably done knocked down one of her friends or whatever like that. And so he keeps slamming the drive-thru. And he's like, man, these hoes crazy, man. Like, and he would just, and to us, me and my homie, we just be bust up laughing. It wasn't funny at all to him, because they coming to his job, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, what's going on? He said, yeah, man. He said, I done hit her, man, and she won't leave me alone, man. And he'd be saying little stuff like that, and it just be the way he would talk and the way he would explain stuff. You would think some of the stuff that he would say, like, one time he said something like, we were talking about how, like, I think there was like a commercial on TV, or there was something that was saying like I think we were talking about how like people were talking about like, the North Side having, a lot of disease, STDs and stuff like that. And so this dude, man, and we thought he was joking, but he kind of wasn't. Like this dude says, he said, yeah, man. He said, you know, if I got with a chick and she gave me something like that, he said, I violate everybody in the house, even the dog. And we just fell out because we thought it was a joke. He said, I'm not playing, man. He said, the dog. He said, everybody getting violated, man. Like, so we just trying to picture this in our head. He said, so what the dog got to do with it? He said, man, you know, they in the house, man. You know, and so he's just kind of going off explaining about what he would do if some chick burnt him or whatever. He said, yeah, man, everybody in the house, man. You know, it's so like we're laughing, and he's not laughing, you know, but we're laughing because we're still thinking it's a joke. And some of the stuff he would say, you couldn't really tell if he was serious, you know, but he wouldn't have a smile on his face. And you know, you could tell you ever seen somebody when they talk and they kind of got like a little grin or like a smirk, but there be no smirk. You see what I'm saying? And no matter how hard we laugh, he still not have a smirk because he's explaining it. So we really couldn't tell if he was like joking kind of or if he was like dead serious. But he looked serious, but the statement was so funny the way he said it. It wasn't funny what he said, but the way he said it was just, we just fell out, man. We couldn't stop laughing. Our stomach be hurting, our cheeks be hurting and stuff. He said, man, I'm for real, man. I'm for real, man. He said, the dog. He said, I fuck the dog, man. He said, if somebody do that to me, man, they gonna pay. Like, he said, I said, this nigga, he done brought bestiality into the shit. He said, man, I'm telling you, man. On chief, man. Like, you know, it gets a riot. And it gets to be the funniest dude, not trying to be funny, gets to be saying stuff or just the way he be looking and stuff. And like, we have missed that guy because we don't know what happened. We think that maybe cause to just vanish just like that. You know, at one point I think he was staying in St. Paul. Because he had some kids. So I met his kids, I met his baby mom and stuff, and you know, they stayed right off Minnehaha, and eventually I think they fell out. She packed up and I think left town. And you know, man, it's crazy. It's like just to jump up and just be gone. You know, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Like I said, I would never know his real name because a lot of times we didn't use, you know, we just used aliases and stuff like that. We didn't really use a lot of governments unless it was somebody that knew us for a very long time and we grew up together or whatnot. But I mean, we didn't, you know, I would have never known what his real name is. You know what? I do know his real name. I forgot. Yeah, I do know his real name. I know why. You know what? Let me tell y'all this real quick story. I gotta tell this one. He had a name, and this is why he said, like, when he did time, he said he had to bust some dudes up. Like, you know what I'm saying? He said he had to really bust some dudes up, you know, when he did time, because I think it was in Georgia or Indiana. It probably was in Georgia or whatever like that. And you know, them prisons are something else. And like he was telling us, like, you know, and he, like I say, if you seen him, he just don't look like the type of dude that be on what he was on. He just don't look like it. And maybe that's like a thing in the South or whatever. They just laid back with it. But you would have no idea what this guy was like and what he was capable of. But he had a name that wasn't, it was like, you typically hear women with that name. It wasn't like super feminine, but it was a name where, you know, you would probably get jokes. You see what I'm saying? You would probably get jokes. And especially, you know, like in prison, like he said, people found out what the name is and they had jokes and they said some stuff. And he said he had to really put some dudes down. Like he said he had to bust some dudes up. And, you know, he wasn't really big, but he said he used to be bigger. But, you know, he was a light-skinned dude. And if you looked at him, he would have been that type where if he's done time, people would have been trying to target him. You see what I'm saying? So, like he said when he did time in some of the maximum securities, whatever, he said he had to get an understanding because people assumed the way he looked, and with him being mild mannered, and because of his government name. So he would tell them, man, don't call me that. My name's Pancho. And they try to say, well, oh no, man, that's your name or whatever. And he said he just took off and just that's what he told. Well, he didn't say exactly what he did, but he said he had to really wreck shop. He said in them facilities, and he said ain't nobody play with him no more. He said, but that's what he said. He had to really, really put it down in them facilities. And he the way he explained it to us is he really kind of got like them dudes didn't play with him in there no more. They just like, man, this dude crazy. We don't know what he's gonna do. He may snap out at any time. And once he identified you as a threat, you might as well check in the PC or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that was a kind of, once he was the kind of guy, once he finds out you a threat, he ain't really gonna loud and yap with you back and forth, whatever. He just gonna do something to you. He gonna do something to you, and he ain't gonna feel bad about it at all. And he might have left town because of something. He had to do something to somebody. He might have had to do something to somebody, and he just bounced because we never saw him again. Never. His phone, nothing. Like he just maybe he just left. Because he was that kind of guy where he would have, if he would have felt like he had to do something to somebody, he just gonna leave. And he don't probably want to tell nobody because he don't want nobody else involved, or he don't want nobody, he didn't want us in trouble or nothing like that. So he just, he was mysterious like that, but the small time that we had knew him and hung out and stuff like that, like I say, it was a blessing because he was a real kindred spirit, man. Real good dude. Give you the shirt off his back and stuff like that. But he was funny. That dude was hilarious. And he was not trying to be funny at the time, but he was just hilarious. So yeah, that's the last piece that we have. Pancho the G from GA and Gary. The gangster from GA and Gary. So all right, y'all. So go ahead and the next segment that I have, I'm trying to link all of these together, so I'm going to release them by piece. So y'all take care.